There we go. All you, Elizabeth.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us over your lunch hour to hear what we have to say about grant writing. Oops, let me just get this right. Okay. Before we start, I do want to give a shout out to what we call the Fab Four, Brittany, Carissa, Veronica, and Tia, whose collective efforts within the development, DevOps, and finance teams help SBP earn funding for our many programs, which has a direct impact on the families we serve. I also want to give a shout out to our programs teams. A theme here that you will hear today is that we can't be successful without your input and impact. So thank you in advance for your partnership. Okay, let's get started. Today, our goal is not to bore you with the ticky-tacky elements of grant writing. This is not a how to write grants session, but rather a moment to share real-life examples of how we work with SB people to build compelling proposals and engage funders to continue their support. Our agenda here can basically be summed up into three themes. Building the case for support is what we are doing to prepare in advance of writing proposals. Putting pen to paper is how we show impact while writing proposals. And we won the grant, but now what do we do? Joining me today for this presentation is our grant writer, Carissa McDonald, who has been with SBP for almost a year. She is based in Oregon, and the value I think she most embodies is time matters, own your route, because of her ability to work independently and find so much data for reports. We also have special cameo appearances by Mike Sullivan and Hannah Troutwine, who are going to help us share. And so hopefully you have some. We'd be happy to answer those. Before we get started, I want to reiterate that grant writing and our ability to do it well impacts everyone at the organization. Our goal is to have a consistent approach to grant writing across SBP, resulting in well-reasoned, measurable, and compelling strategies that strengthen our ability to achieve our goals and secure funds for our work. Okay, I'll pass it to Carissa to talk about our first agenda item, building the case for support.
Thank you, Elizabeth. When we start looking for new grants, we start first by looking at organizational needs. We have three approaches we take when prioritizing these funding needs. Thanks to our awesome colleagues on the finance team, we know exactly which programs have funding gaps, which helps inform our research. While we may try to target funders to support specific programs like DAP, AmeriCorps, or Prepare, we are also always on the lookout for funders who would support in less restrictive ways. Next, as you all know, we can't predict where storms will hit, but episodic fundraising for disaster response is an essential part of our work. Considering that most disaster donations are made within the first 3 weeks of an event, this becomes a priority for our team. Finally, the last category of organizational needs are prize opportunities. There are many entities who pool funding and hold prize competitions to award ideas and programs that are addressing a specific need. For example, last year, SBP submitted to the Enterprise Wells Fargo Housing Affordability Breakthrough Challenge, where we made it to the round 16 for our innovation, RAF, as a means of preserving affordable housing. While we ultimately didn't win the prize, it was still great exposure for our program and gave our team good practice in delivering a compelling case for RAF. The next step, which is an ongoing activity, is finding funder alignment. To research potential funders, we utilize tools like the Foundation Directory, an online database of foundations, to narrow in on known entities who make grants in common areas of interest. This helps us prioritize where we have funder alignment. We also look to see who is funding peer organizations. These entities already care about disasters, so it's a really good place to start. Relationship mapping is another key step in the research process, which means we look to see if our board or people in our network might know someone at the funding organization. We try to keep in mind that people give to people, so having human interaction helps put context around written proposals. Finally, we work with program leaders to ensure that our requests are aligned with their program's needs and ability to execute. We've invited Mike Sullivan to join us to share an example of what this has looked like recently.
Thanks, Carissa, and hello, Mike. The first example of a best practice we want to share is from a recent funding win and how programs helped us achieve it. Our team was tasked with fundraising for AmeriCorps this year. So we did the work to find funders who align with this program. Hearst Foundation is a funder who we actually had previously applied for, but did not get chosen for a grant. Through conversations with their foundation, we learned a little more insight about their priorities that helped us craft a stronger proposal this time around. Some things to know about Hearst. They care about national impact versus local. Their funding priorities are youth development, job training, and affordable housing. The majority of Hearst's $70 million annual giving goes to existing partners. In other words, once you're in, you're more likely to receive funding again. When we built our strategy around applying this year, it included interviewing our AmeriCorps leadership team to ensure we understood how to make the best case to our funder. Our AmeriCorps language was a bit outdated, so we brought in Mike and others for help. Mike, I've asked him to join us today to share more about his input in this process. So Mike, thanks for joining us.
I am so thrilled to be here today.
Mike, the visual breakdown here will show how much better our proposal was after engaging you and your team. You obviously are the green guy. It's important to note that the time you invested didn't just help with this application, but we now have the language and KPIs in place, and we use that info for other proposals as well. So can I ask you to walk us through the before and after of this proposal?
Yes, and thank you for choosing the color green. It is my favorite color. So we're all familiar with COVID in 2020 and like all of the fun stuff that brought. The AmeriCorps agency itself wasn't impervious to COVID, neither was recruitment. And so there's a number of factors that led to organizations being eligible for funding waivers on the AmeriCorps side of things. And just like for brief context, the AmeriCorps grant itself is a cost match grant. So when the federal agency says, hey, we'll fund you at this level, you as a grantee have an obligation to come up with a very specific percentage of match. For SBP, the last couple of years, that's been 50%. But because of COVID and some of the waivers that were available that we were able to take advantage of as a grantee, it's been quite a few years since we've actually needed to raise funds for our portion of the grant. This year, when the development team started researching potential funders, they needed to look beyond funders who supported rebuilding or service or disasters in general. And what we found was that there were many funders out there who care about job training, they care about career development, and they care about housing affordability. As most of you know, our AmeriCorps members are doing so much more, especially now than ever before. We've got members who support our disaster assistance programming. We've got members who are supporting Helen and the Prepare team, in addition to our OOR and OH programs. I think click. I don't know if I clicked.
I got it.
Okay, cool. So the first one here shows how we changed the value proposition away from how AmeriCorps service was supporting SBP services for clients towards how members would benefit from their term of service, what job skills, what training they would receive that would prepare them for future careers, future opportunities. Next, while the Hearst Foundation does care about affordable housing, we also knew that we could point to a much broader program scope. So we added in the disaster assistance programming and the Prepare programming. And understanding that Hearst cares about broader impact, we also helped development understand that members were serving clients all over the country, both virtually and in person. And because of their service in programs like Prepare, in programs like DAP, that went beyond build. And then finally, one of the biggest changes in our proposal in partnership with the development team was helping them have a deeper understanding of how we measure member trainings and employment opportunities and all of the fun performance measures that we have.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike. And thanks to your team's input, we actually built a much stronger proposal, very closely aligned with the funders' priorities. Unlike the first time we applied, we recently heard some good news about this proposal. The foundation recommended that we move, there it is, to their next round of vetting, which is a good step. This will include a site visit here in New Orleans, where we'll have an opportunity to pull you back in again to help make our case. They will recommend our proposal to the board in December, and so we feel really great about our chances. So thank you, Mike, and your team. Back to you, Carissa.
Okay, so now we'll talk about writing a proposal. The theme of this section is putting pen to paper, showing impact. We will demonstrate how using the right words, choosing achievable KPIs, and building relationships with funders are essential components to successful grant writing. First, words matter. Our written proposal is the formal request that makes the case for SBP, so we want to make sure we get it right. It's essential that the reader of the proposal, the funder, can clearly understand how our need can be solved with their resources. One way to hook them early is to use their language about the problem and solution. Another reason we want to use their language is to show that the proposal was written specifically for them and not just a template that we send to all funders. Here's an example of what this has looked like. Quote, SBP imagines a system transformed to overturn inequities and resulting vulnerabilities, increasing resilience within community infrastructure while fortifying insurance against inevitable climate events. Here we've taken SBP's boilerplate language and inserted the funder's language, which was, quote, transformed to overturn inequities. This keeps the writing close to SBP's mission while also appealing to this specific funder and showing how our goals and vision fit together.
Nope.
Okay, next we try to balance the head and the heart. What does this mean? Head is the data, the stats, and the impact numbers. And this is where we might cite a statistic about hurricane risk and then link the source to legitimize the problem. Then there's the heart, which shows the human need that is being addressed. We often rely on client stories for this. So when you share impact stories with our team, we're bringing the funder closer to our work and painting a picture of how their funding is solving real-world problems. It's important to keep in mind that some funders care more about data while others care more about the human impact. But at the end of the day, people give to people. So we want to make sure we're covering all of these bases. Last but not least, we have to make sure the proposal gets the job done, which is to demonstrate a compelling need. Sometimes it's easy to get bogged down in the details like KPIs and character counts, but we still have to make sure that the writing stands above the hundreds of other proposals that the funder is likely reading.
So now that we have the language piece down, we have to make sure that what we are proposing is achievable by the program teams. Program leaders play a key role in this part. To the best of our knowledge, we want to set aggressive yet achievable KPIs for each grant. In the spirit of constructive discontent, we thought we'd use this section to highlight an example of unintentionally unachievable KPIs. As you all know, the Disaster Assistance Program is a very new program. Our first appeal award started coming in early 2021 in Louisiana after Hurricanes Laura and Ida. With a lot of grit and muscling it through, our tiny DAP team was able to help survivors increase awards by nearly $1 million. Such incredible results. So when Kentucky suffered 2 major disasters in 2022, our DAP team sprung into action, and I was excited about duplicating these results in Kentucky. I found a funder and built a pitch, and I was sure nobody could say no to this. So I cringed looking at this, but this is taken from the actual presentation I made to a funder, potentially for DAP in Kentucky. This basically shows how I pitched how we could more than triple results if we just tripled our team. In Louisiana, we increased awards by nearly $1 million, which is 1 full-time employee. So surely we could triple that if we had 3 full-time employees, right? Very, very wrong. I definitely didn't make up these KPIs on my own, but we didn't know enough to know how these goals were completely unattainable because the conditions in Kentucky were not the same as Louisiana. The good news here is that the funder was willing to learn alongside us because they believed that this program was worthy of scaling. And so the original KPIs we put forth didn't end up being the final ones, but they were still excited about what this program was doing. So thank goodness Claire joined our team and led the charge in Kentucky, and they did so much despite massive headwinds there. Our experience in Kentucky, though, taught us that every DAP community was going to be different. We can't assume our results will be comparable in new communities. For this reason, we moved away from KPIs that promised a certain dollar amount or number of appeals. And so we've really learned that we really need to work closely with the program teams to understand what is actually achievable and what are realistic timeframes. The final component of this section, putting pen to paper, is relationships. While we spend a lot of time making the case via written word, it is still essential to have personal relationships with our funders. Ameriprise Financial is an example of a longtime partner with a great track record of impact with us. Because of their years-long partnership with SBP, unbeknownst to us, they removed the requirement to be invited to submit a yearly proposal. So we didn't receive that invite, and so we missed the deadline to submit. But because of our relationship and the trust we've built, thanks to the impact you, our programs, have consistently delivered, the program officer reached out and personally asked us why we hadn't submitted a request and extended the deadline for us. And within a week, we were able to submit a $75,000 proposal for AmeriCorps. This trust is built over time, consistently demonstrating the impact of our funder support makes them want to keep investing in our work. Your ability to drive impact gets translated to funders over and over again. And that's why we say everyone at SBP plays a role in fundraising.
So now we're on to we won the grant. Being awarded a grant is exciting, but the work doesn't end there. We have a responsibility to steward the funds until they are spent completely. And then the ultimate goal is to renew and hopefully increase the funder's support. This part of the process could not be done without the help of finance and program staff. Compliance is essential to renewal. Development works with finance and programs to ensure that everyone is aware of our commitments to the funder before we submit a grant application. Then we make sure we are on track with deadlines and KPIs via grant intake meetings, donor acknowledgement letters, and Salesforce tracking during the grant period. This is a true team effort between development, finance, and program leaders to make sure we meet and oftentimes exceed funder expectations to win future grants. Impact reporting is when we report back to the funder on our progress to meeting goals within the agreed upon timeline. Typically, we have interim reports halfway through a grant period and then a final report once the funds have been completely spent. This is when we provide those impact stats, heartfelt client stories, and bring photos to the funder to bring them closer to their impact. Thanks to program leaders, we have received glowing responses from funders who have been moved by the quantifiable impact and client stories we provide in our reports. All of this stewardship gets us closer to earning and possibly increasing the renewal next time we request a grant from that funder. Next, we'll hear from a program director about their role in grant stewardship and how they've helped renew and increase funding recently.
So now that we've worked with the program teams to get the right language and KPIs, I'd like to highlight an example of how we work with programs to report on impact and work towards grant renewals. Before I bring Hannah in, I'll share a little background about our funder, the Walmart Foundation. They've been a partner of ours for almost 10 years. Their funding has historically been tied to disasters until 2021, when Walmart added resilience to the company's philanthropic strategy. Our Fellows program was conceptualized and piloted thanks to the Walmart Foundation. Over the 2 years of our Fellows grant, we stayed in touch with our program officer at a regular cadence and submitted our final report in a way that everyone was proud of. And the success of that pilot led to a much larger $2 million investment into SBP's Fellows Program, which is what our team is executing now. It's important to note that we never would have received the second grant had we not performed on the first. A key player in this success is Hannah Troutline. So I asked her to join me today to demonstrate how she is involved in our partnership with Walmart. Hannah, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Hi, everyone. My name's Hannah, and I have the pleasure of supporting our Resilience and Recovery Fellows Program.
So Hannah, I'm not sure your job description says anything about creating monthly reports to a funder. Can you share a little bit about why you're so involved and then walk us through your process?
Sure. I was reflecting on this week, and I think I really had a unique perspective of this program because I didn't have the chance to be in leadership on this team when I first started with SBP. So for my first year at the organization, I kind of watched from the sidelines as someone else ran the program. And one of the things that I really was thankful to have the opportunity to do was when I was asked to become part of the leadership of the program around this time last year, I knew that one of the things that I would try to do very well was to explain the program and communicate the program in a way that could make sense to anyone. I think that sometimes, especially in the advise world, it's easy for us to have this like alphabet soup of things that make sense to us, like CDBG-DR and FEMA BRIC programs, and then to be able to explain that on any level to people who have been in this world for a long time, or to folks like funders who sometimes don't need all of that information but want to understand what's going on in the program, was something that I was really passionate about as I got the chance to become a leader of the program, and just want to thank Elizabeth and the development team for understanding what that kind of influence with the funder could look like and giving me the opportunity to step into that role, even if it wasn't necessarily part of my job description.
Yeah, and it means the world to Brooks, who's our program officer, to feel like the investment and the not risk, but like he put up SBP for a $2 million grant. And so the fact that we spend this time with him every month and give him stuff to report back, really helps him see that he made the right choice in investing in SBP. Hannah, could you kind of, there's a few slides here that kind of outline what your reports look like. Can you kind of walk us through those?
Yeah, so first, I think that monthly reporting really shows the funder what's happening almost in real time. We meet with Brooks every 3 or 4 weeks. And so there's really no surprises behind who we're hiring, what their resume looks like, what our communities will look like. And because of that, he has a really deep understanding of the program itself, but also the challenges of the program. So when there comes a time that we're going to have to ask for an extension on spend or whatever the case may be, Brooks already knows that that's coming, and we've kind of highlighted it for him. And so there won't be any surprises. Also, another important part is that there's an understanding that what we give to Brooks, he has to give to a boss. And so highlighting success, highlighting challenges, and being able to capture kind of those monthly updates, as well as high level information that he can pass on to make sure that he looks good in his role and that Walmart is happy with him and happy with us, is important. And then by meeting monthly, honestly, it feels like we have a true partnership. So this has led to a lot of great opportunities for us at SBP, and specifically in the Fellows Program. Reese was asked to be on the main stage of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation Conference in May. And then we'll also have the opportunity to speak here in the next month at a conference of state legislators. And so it's great to be able to have what feels like a true partnership with Brooks, that we can have honest conversations. And we see, the Walmart Foundation often at different conferences, whether they invited us to speak or they're just there as a foundation. And so to be able to talk with him about the program just when we run into each other is really great, and feel like he's a true partner of SBP's.
Yeah, and endorser too. Like,
Mm.
never know who he's talking to and say, wow, they do a really nice job of like keeping me in the know. So it's definitely a worthwhile investment. Hannah, do you have any advice for other program leaders as they partner with us on the development team?
I think, Elizabeth, you've done a great job of helping me understand what Brooks wants to know. And so that's a big part of it, is that, like I said earlier, some people want the details. They understand the language and they want to know every little thing of what's going on. And other parts of your audience might just want the high level, or maybe they're really focused on climate adaptation, or maybe they want to hear mitigation over and over. And so those little things matter, and knowing your audience is so important. So you can kind of balance the things that, for example, there are things that I'm really excited about, especially in the three fellows that we had in Lake Charles and Terrebonne and Eastern Kentucky. They were really involved in recovery efforts right after a disaster that I was very excited about and thought, this is incredible work. And it totally was. But Elizabeth kept having to remind me, like, okay, what's like the resilience element? What's the mitigation element of that? Because that's what Walmart Foundation also wants to hear. And so I guess my advice would be to know your audience as well as possible, so you're giving them the right level of information as well as the type of information that they're looking for.
Awesome. Thank you, Hannah, and thank you, Mike, for being our special guest today. Thank you, Carissa, for helping present and all the work that you do. We'd be happy to take some questions if anybody has some right now.
I don't have a question per se, but I just wanted to give a shout out to the entire development team. You guys work tirelessly to get these funds coming through so that we can continue to do what we do and continue to help our community. So thank you to you guys.
Thanks, Veronica. Great. Well, I'm not hearing any questions. That means we covered everything and you guys have got it. And so when we pick up the phone and ask for your help with some of these, you'll know exactly what we're looking for. So thank you in advance. And please keep your eye out for opportunities. As program folks, you're in the field and you can see who's funding other groups, or who's doing really exciting work that we should know about. That all helps to add depth and context to our grant writing and written work. So thank you all for joining us today. I hope you have a great rest of the day and great weekend upcoming.
Awesome. Elizabeth, Carissa, Mike, thank you so much. Y'all have a great day, everybody. Take care.